A few months ago, I sat down at my desk on a Sunday morning, determined to get ahead. I opened my laptop, stared at the task list, and started. 20 minutes later, I just stopped. My hands wouldn't move. My brain wouldn't engage. I wasn't tired. I wasn't sick. I simply couldn't. That afternoon, I discovered a Japanese word that explained exactly what was happening to me and probably to you too. My friend Hana, who grew up in Osaka, said it like this. In Japan, we call it yutori. It doesn't translate neatly. The closest English words are spaciousness, leeway, room to breathe, but none of them really capture it. Yutori is the deliberate decision to leave empty space in your life. Not because you're behind, not because you're lazy, but because the empty space is the point. The moment I understood that, I felt genuinely uncomfortable. I realized I'd been doing modern life completely wrong. And I think a lot of you have been doing it wrong too. Let me explain. That Sunday I told you about, let's go back there for a second. After I failed to work, I did something I cannot remember doing in years. I walked to my balcony with a cup of tea. No phone, no book, no podcast, nothing. I sat there for 40 minutes, just watching people walk past on the street below. When I came back inside, I wrote the entire script I'd been struggling with in 25 minutes. Less time than I had spent failing earlier that morning. That's when I started researching yutori. And the deeper I went, the more I realized this wasn't just a wellness trend. This was a complete rejection of the way most of us now live. Here's what yutori actually means. It became famous in Japan in the early 2000s, when the country introduced something called yutori education. It was a national reform that reduced school hours, cut back on testing, and gave children more UN-structured time. Critics called it soft. Defenders called it the most honest thing the Japanese education system had ever done. The defenders won, eventually, because the research was overwhelmingly on their side. I keep thinking about a study from the University of Illinois by Atsunori Ariga and Alejandro Lleras. They found that brief mental diversions don't interrupt focus, they restore it. Cognitive stamina isn't infinite. The brain doesn't fail because it's weak. It fails because we never let it pause. Another study, published in the journal Cognition by Benjamin Baird and his team, found something even more striking. When the mind wanders, really wanders, with no goal creative insight goes UP. The shower thought phenomenon? It's real, and it's not random. It happens because the brain, given empty space, finally has room to connect things. This is the part that genuinely bothers me. We've spent the last 50 years treating productivity like a religion, optimizing every minute, stacking every hour, filling every gap. And the actual science keeps quietly telling us the most productive thing we can do is do less, on purpose. We just refuse to listen. But before I go further, I want to clear something up, because almost everyone misunderstands this. Yutori is not laziness. Yutori is not self-care. Yutori is not do less work. Yutori is structural slack. It's the difference between running your life at 100% capacity and running it at 80. Think about a car engine for a second. A car running at full RPM doesn't drive faster. It overheats. It breaks down. It dies young. A person running at full RPM does exactly the same thing. Japanese culture expert Azumi Uchitani describes yutori as having extra capacity in life. Not just in your time, but in your energy, your attention, even your money. The opposite of yutori isn't productivity. It's fragility disguised as efficiency. Once you see that, you can't unsee it. So I started experimenting. I want to share 4 changes I made, not as advice, just as the actual shifts that worked for me. The first one was the hardest. I started blocking off empty time on my calendar. Not free time, empty time, marked as a real appointment. 20 minutes, 3 times a week, where I'm not allowed to do anything useful. No errands, no reading, no productive rest. The first time I tried it, I lasted about 4 minutes before I checked my phone. By the 3rd week, those 20-minute windows had become the most important slots in my entire week. I'd come out of them with ideas, decisions, clarity. I couldn't manufacture any other way. My best thinking wasn't happening at my desk. It was happening when I let my desk go. The second change was about transitions. I noticed I'd been treating every small gap in my day as a problem to be solved. Walking to the Metro podcast, waiting in line scroll, riding the elevator reply to a message, boiling water open Instagram. I couldn't be alone with my own thoughts for 90 seconds, so I just stopped. I let the silences sit there. No phone, no input. Just walking, just standing, just waiting. The first week was genuinely uncomfortable. By the second week, my brain was generating ideas faster than I could write them down. This shouldn't have been a surprise. Microsoft's Productivity Lab published research showing that even brief interruptions, a notification, a Slack ping double the likelihood of mistakes on complex tasks. Constant input doesn't make you more capable. It makes you more brittle. We've all been training our brains to never be quiet, and then we wonder why we can't think. The third change was financial, and I didn't expect this one, because Utori doesn't just apply to time. It applies to money too. I used to budget my income down to the last euro. Every euro had a job. Every euro had a category. It felt responsible. What it actually was financially fragile. The moment anything unexpected hit, the whole system collapsed. So I created something I started calling financial Utori, a small monthly buffer, about 5% of my income, that has no job. It doesn't go to investments. It doesn't go to savings. It doesn't even cover specific bills. It just sits there. That tiny pocket of money has done more for my mental health than any productivity hack I've ever tried. Because Utori isn't just about time off. It's about not being one bad day away from collapse. The fourth change, this one might be the most powerful. I stopped trying to fill silences in conversations. When someone says something, I let the pause sit. Even when it gets awkward, especially when it gets awkward, because the pause is where the real thought happens. For them and for me, the conversations changed. They got slower. They got deeper. People said things they wouldn't have said if I jumped in to keep the rhythm going. It turns out the silence wasn't empty. The silence was where the meaning was. Haruki Murakami, one of the most prolific writers alive, once said he needs a little empty space in his schedule to write, to run, to think. That's the whole philosophy. The most creative version of you isn't the version running at full capacity. It's the version with empty space. Every day. On purpose. We've been told for so long that the empty space is the enemy. It's not. It's where everything good actually comes from. If you've been feeling tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix, that's not a sleep problem. That's a Utori problem. So try one thing this week. Just one. A walk without your phone. 20 minutes blocked off for nothing. A pause in a conversation that you don't rush to fill. Tell me in the comments which one you're going to try. I read every single one. And if this resonated with you, please subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss the next video. You can watch the one that YouTube is recommending right over there. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.